So it's interesting that technology led to that type of transformation in banking. So it was great to be part of it. But what does the branch of the future look like? How do you help a bank transform in this day and age?
Another Irish bank, Permanent TSB, and you're now the group CTO.
Our small bank, we have, on a busy day, we might have 600, 700,000 people logging onto that app. So my job is to ensure we have the good tech strategy, the good architecture, the good tech capability, but our collective role then is how do you blend that into a strategy for the bank that's going to take the bank forward.
Tom, thank you for saying yes to being a guest on our Leadership in Tech podcast. So we genuinely appreciate your time.
Yeah, delighted to be here, Neil. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Good on you. Take me back a little bit. You went to UCC then down in Cork, right? What made you actually pick the course that you picked in the end? And tell me a bit about that journey from an education perspective.
Yeah, so I was brought up in Cork City, so went to school there in the diocesan seminary, which had quite a diversity of guys from around the county, which was fantastic. And I enjoyed languages and I enjoyed science in school. So they were the two things that I was kind of caught my imagination. And so I decided to do science, and always starting to get a little bit more practical. So science seemed like a more practical thing to do in university, and general science degree, and brilliant. So everything, your physics, your chemistry, your maths, my curiosity about how things work and hang together was there. And during that, so that was the late 80s, and this thing called computers was quite something's going to happen here. So again, quite practical. Computer science was an option during that degree to do your major in. So in the last couple of years of that degree, I aimed for computer science. There was a little bit of a challenge as well. I think there was 22 places, and the competition to get one of those was interesting. So I went for that, got it, and immersed myself in computer science for a couple of years, which was brilliant. But I'm not really a tech geek type guy. I'm interested in technology, but I'm more interested in how you can apply it and how you can use it in society or in companies or to solve problems. So I think with that sort of lens on computer science and technology, I had a lot of, optionality then around career in terms of how you would take that forward and build a career on it. So that was the start. That was my kind of third level of education. Yep.
But how did that because you kind of went in then on it, wasn't it a graduate program to AIB originally, wasn't it? So
I applied, yeah. So I applied for a variety of grad programs that were available at that time. This was
Was the market good?
This is the early 90s. It was market wasn't great. So the banks were hiring at the time, the likes of Kerry Group, and a lot of the options were in the UK as well. So I had a number of options, but I decided on banking, and I decided on Dublin really. I decided that I wanted to move to Dublin because that felt like the natural place for me to be, friends, social, etc. So I got a graduate placement in AIB, and it was a technology graduate program, which was a good call. So you had a number of months of learning about banking, learning about the business. You've got a ready-made network, so you're meeting 20 odd people from around the country, all in the same position. So we had a great kind of social network within the program, and you've got a great grounding in the business, in technology, and how you can move forward. And obviously during a program, the early months of a program like that, you're being assessed all of the time in terms of what are you good at, what are you not so good at, and what might be the right fit for you in your early career. So that was the start.
And clearly you had an interesting trajectory anyway. You were clearly applied yourself. You were within that cohort. Yeah. There was someone that was... well,
I was very lucky. So I was very lucky in the sense.
Humble and unassuming, but I'm going to talk you up here anyway, right? So but there was good opportunities for people that applied themselves that, and you clearly navigated that well and got promoted and had lots of variety within the bank then, because you stayed there for a good chapter, right?
The first gig, let's call it that, was probably the making of us, really, in that it was not traditional. So it was in the strategy and research area of technology in banking. So it wasn't straight into programming or straight into operations or anything like that, which majority of people would have been directed towards. So you got a bit of freedom for your early career. And we were, as a very smart bunch of people. So you're a very smart team, very engaged, very curious. So you're straight into that. And we were, and I'm going back a long time now, and we were studying and researching things like, we talked today about AI. We were talking about neural networks, the use of artificial intelligence in banking at that stage.
Back before it was as trendy.
Yeah,
now.
we were, one of the first things I was looking at was, get a little bit geeky, TCP/IP, so the protocol behind the internet, because there was a challenge in the bank at that time where a lot of the early systems were all very bespoke, and the challenge was how do we get these things to talk to one another and connect to one another. We researched this protocol called IP, so really interesting, and then that evolved to become the basis of the internet, and then through time we experimented with direct banking. And, so at that stage, banking was quite traditional. It's branch, it's teller, it's relationship. But direct banking in terms of options like, telephone banking, IVR, interactive voice response, was a project I worked on in the early days. We worked on concept branches. So what does the branch, we still look at these things, but what does the branch of the future look like? So we were putting in like video technology into branches. Remember, we did an outlet in Temple Bar, putting a video booth in there, and people are kind of looking at us, at that time, what's this about? And society wasn't ready for it or not comfortable with it. So you learn a huge amount. Things like, let me think, even smart cards, like the pre-chip and pin cards that are pretty old-fashioned now, but, we researched the magic of the smart card, how it could enable secure ATM point-of-sale transactions. So I was immersed in the best technologies, and you were given the conditions to thrive, really, because you had lots of smart people around you. The executive at the time, who was a brilliant guy, gave you an awful lot of empowerment. So you were shown the sort of the possibilities. You were asked to experiment with these technologies, and if there was something to it, you would get funding, and you would go on and you would build something, and you would build a pilot, and if the pilot was good, it would go again and it would become something. And many of the things that are in banking today, like your app banking, your digital banking, your secure point of sale, all of that, your direct banking models, all evolved from that type of technology. So it's interesting that technology led to that type of transformation in banking. So it was great to be part of it. Yeah.
And let's talk about today, actually. We'll do a little bit of yo-yoing today, so forgive me. But, after you, I suppose, progressively worked on different roles and gained more responsibility with AIB, you were tapped on the shoulder, shall we say, for a great opportunity with another Irish bank, Permanent TSB, and you're now the Group CTO of that bank. Help me understand about like the changes and the reality of that role and what that actually means for you today. And, maybe start by saying, give us a bit of a sense of
what it's about.
What Permanent, who are they? What's their positioning within the market? Just for those that aren't too familiar.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the journey from that research person to the CTO in a second.
Exactly.
But the role today is, it's the CTO at the bank at Permanent TSB. It was a new position created just over 5 years ago. So that was, for me, that was attractive, and it was very much part of the executive committee. So it's a member of the senior leadership team of the bank. So it was a small bank in Ireland recognizing that technology had to be at the top table, and there was an incredible mandate around it, a very challenging mandate, but an incredible opportunity. So for me, in terms of where I had come from, it was very exciting. And again, talk about people and smart people. The people I was joining, or who were looking for me to join the bank, to me were very interesting. had very good values, and look, I felt okay. I can work with these people. There's a huge opportunity, and I think I can bring something to the table. So that's kind of the start of it. The job itself is, let's say, it has to be finely balanced. Okay, so fundamentally, banking has changed. So customer behaviors, customer trends in banking have gone very much into the digital space. So people are voting with their thumbs, really, and the app is the thing. That's how people typically do their banking. And for our small bank, we have, on a busy day, we might have 600, 700,000 people logging onto that app. And around your busy periods of the year, end of year, Christmas, the number of payments, you're in the millions. The value is incredible. So the value and the intensity of banking around digital is very significant. Therefore, it has to be very resilient, and it has to be very available. So huge focus for me is kind of running the business safely, running it to ensure that the service is reliable and consistent. There are a whole myriad of threats around that in banking, cyber, for example. So, the CISO role as part of my leadership team is a very key role. So the cyber strategy, the cyber roadmap, the defense, the new roles that we're putting in there. So that's we call them the safe foundations, is a big part of the job, but probably not the part I was hired for. But you have to keep that. That's BAU. That's table stakes. The transformational end of it is where I guess the growth is. So how do you help a bank transform in this day and age? And that's very much through digital transformation. It's around how we think about the use of data, how we think about the customer journey, how we think differently, how we need to think differently about the customer journey in terms of always doing that from customer at the center. So that's this idea of customer-centric design, journey design. How do you use data cleverly within those journeys? So to add in data science, how do you architect? So how do you solutionize brilliant experiences? How do you QA them? How do you bring them to market? So that whole piece around growth opportunity, customer expectation and demand, and the ability to innovate within banking, that transformation piece is a massive part of the role. So you have the safe foundations, the growth and transformation agenda, and then you have another element of it, which is around the kind of the strategic architecture. So to do all of this, your architecture of your bank has to be very well thought out. And banks are, our bank has been around 3 years, over 200 years. Technology has been part of that story probably for over 60, if not 60 years. So your technology architecture within banks has become very complex, and I call it heritage. Others would call it legacy. But one of the biggest disciplines within my remit is to ensure we're thinking about that architecture and making sure that it's fit for purpose for the future. So almost decomposing the history and componentizing and looking at things like payments engines, digital front ends, event-based, all of these, cloud. How do you think about that within your architecture? So your care and maintenance around your architecture is a huge part of the job as well, to allow not just the next 5 years of growth, but think 10 years and what might come down, and how the bank can continue to evolve. So there's quite a lot to it. From a business perspective, it's in our bank, it's very tight working relationships with our commercial retail directors, our COO, our CFO, the CEO. We're all very much engaged in how we think about the bank for the future, the role technology can play, what's reasonable to expect, not to expect. So that shaping of the bank strategy is something that we all work very, very closely on. So my job is to ensure we have the good tech strategy, the good architecture, the good tech capability, but our collective role that is how do you blend that into a strategy for the bank that's going to take the bank forward. And then the last piece, but I suppose just to mention, would be the amount then of stakeholder interest in all of that is a fantastic part of the job as well. So you have a very engaged board. Their interest in technology is very, very significant. Our regulators are very interested in the technology story at our banks. Our investors are very interested in the story. Our customers are, our colleagues. So that stakeholder piece and how we communicate is really important as well. So there's a lot to it. So
there's so much, big breadth and depth to it. That regulation for a moment, because obviously there is some different changes all the time, and it's obviously a highly regulated environment. But how do you navigate that effectively, and how do you really? Because there's so much there, right? And how do you prioritize? And I think a lot of listeners and people viewing this, there'll be in leadership roles, there'll be technology, and maybe trying to get to that kind of CX level where you're really good influence in the way you speak about your peers that. That's a meaningful seat at the table to really drive transformational change. And it sounds like it's top down as well as bottom up, left to right, which is fantastic to see. But where there's regulation and there's change, what's any tips or any advice for any kind of leaders, how you really kind of navigate that and how you keep on top of all of that? Because it's a busy mandate.
It is, You need to understand your regulation, so that's important, and you need people in your team who understand this in quite a deep way, so understand the relevant regulations and more importantly how you interpret them within the context of your bank and your technology. So I'm lucky to have people who we're very well versed in the regulation within my team. Within banks, you've got 3 levels of defence, so you've got second and third line teams who are there to check and assure and challenge as well. So they inform, but they all also ensure that you're keeping on top of that. And equally, we work with the industry. So we work with the firms around town, experts from across the globe, literally from around the globe, in terms of how we think about regulation, what's coming downstream, etc. So it's significant, but it's very meaningful. So if I give you an example, so so I talked a little bit around customer behaviors changing, and digital being the intensive way of banking. So that experience that our customers are having is kind of mission critical for their life, how they pay, how they share, etc. So the security and the integrity of that is paramount. So there's a piece of regulation, and I won't bore you with details on regulations, but it's called the Digital Operational Resilience Act, DORA. It's a European piece of regulation coming into force in a year and a half's time, and it's there to protect the integrity of the system, there to protect the experience of our customers across Europe. And it's fairly demanding. It's very demanding, and it places a lot of obligations on banks and teams like my own. But if you can get comfortable that it has purpose and meaning and it's the right thing to do, it's very it becomes quite easy to navigate and to motivate your team to get immersed in it. And in our case, it's a program. It becomes a program of work and a mission then to ensure we understand it, we comply with it, and we get ahead of it, and then keep with it. These are not just one time. These are not one time events. One of the things that has impacted on Europe retail banks in the last few years is the whole PSD2 Act. So it's changed how people experience their banking and the secure customer authentication, and it's a little bit more challenging for customers to interact with our app because there's a few more challenges, but a few more steps. Our job is to make that as simple as possible, but you have to meet the conditions and to ensure that the secure integrity of that app and that experience. But that's it. That's the job, Yeah, that's the gig.
I'm curious about challenger banks, right? And that really means, is it harder or easier to drive innovation and get sign off when there's kind of really like forward thinking? What I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
So you got this expectation now for consumers, and this kind of this wave of options now for consumers in relation to how they bank. And there's lots of trends in the movement of people and digital nomads. There's lots of different changes in society, right?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, when you're trying to really land and drive innovation and get budget approval for something, pretty meaty and pretty innovative, does it help where there's like, maybe some challenger banks that seem to be ahead of the curve when it comes to maybe user experience or features on different apps? Does it help, or does it kind of distract? I'm just curious.
No, I think
the dynamics of that.
I think there's personally, I think it helps. So I think in fairness to the neobanks, or whatever term we want to use, typically more greenfield, typically will have started from with very fresh thinking, very fresh technology, etc., which is great. And the one thing that a number of these newer banks have brought to the table is the emphasis on customer experience. So it's all about UX. It's all about the customer experience. It's all about the app. It's all about that digital journey. That brings that whole lens into the vernacular of all stakeholders around banking. So that's fantastic. My own view is learn from that. Seek out the best of it. Who does it best, and figure out then how you can do it better. Okay, that's the thing. And then also from a bank like ourselves, who've been around for over 200 years within Ireland, what else is it within our DNA that we cherish and makes us different? Okay, so that heritage, that piece around being part of Irish society, being part of Irish communities for over 200 years, knowing really knowing what customers need, what communities need, and the support that's required through different economic cycles. Now, we've had ups and downs, but in the round there,
Trust piece, like really kind of.
so trust is at the absolute core of what our bank is about. It's literally our purpose is to build trust with customers, and we actually have to work hard to build trust. So roll your sleeves up. Trust is the essence of banking, and has been for hundreds of years. So how do you take that? Okay, that DNA and the innovation and the learning from some of these neo players, and make something that's even more sustainable and more incredible for the future. So that's perhaps that's lofty, but that's the ambition. And
But that's front and center for customers. Like they want to be safe. There's lots of threats. You've already touched on it.
Yeah.
And the threats seem to be they're even more creative now. So we have to be even sharper and even better.
Better
architecture, and as you alluded to that.
And there's different blends and different possibilities as well, Neil. So like a couple of years ago, we were talking about fintech and threat or opportunities. So as it has evolved, it's partnerships. It's how you can collaborate to co-create. So in my current role, I'm very interested in meeting up and coming fintechs. What part of the journey can they, or do they really excel on? Can they do it better than we do? Can that be part of our offering, our proposition as well? So there's something
by kind of looking at different strategies.
In old money, it's build or buy, but it's but it's in new money, it's ecosystem. In new money, it's platform banking. And it's very interesting. If you can bring the best of different parties to the table and create something exceptional. Yeah.
I want to talk about your leadership DNA for a little bit, right? And and something that we spoke about before, and that I know is really important to you, is that sense of balance.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of sweating really tired when you went through that kind of complexity of your mandate.
Yeah.
And which is exciting and full of challenge and full of opportunity, which clearly buzzes you.
Yeah.
But there's a trade-off, and sometimes there's consequences of that level of. And how do you, what's your secret around sense of balance? Because I do still find in the tech community in general that, we've got super ambitious, super talented people. And I know personally loads of people in good positions, but some of them, they do suffer with burnout.
Yeah.
They maybe neglect certain things in their life, and it is a real thing, and it's important, and that wellness piece is really important.
Sure.
So as a leader and someone that, you obviously fit and look well and look
Thanks,
after
Dave.
yourself. But that sense of balance, like that's not a fluke, right? So that's obviously something that you're really conscious of. So
You have to be. You have to be.
But give me a sense of what's your discipline or checks and balances around that, because it's so cool.
I suppose the most important thing is that sense of awareness of well-being, and also not losing touch on kind of why you do all of this. So for me, ultimately it's about family and being in good shape and good spirits and being a positive influence around my wife and the kids. And that's life. That's the most important thing in the world. And if you find that going off kilter or out of balance, then you've got to get yourself back into order. Now, the wife will get you back into order as well and let you know, so which is no harm. But that's what you're protecting, and protecting yourself and your energy for. The role that I have is exciting. Okay, it's all consuming, multi-dimensional, and you could literally spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week immersed in it. But you can't do that. So for me, it's ensuring that there's the kind of check and balance around how I live. So fitness, particularly since I've took on the CTO role, just having a personal regime around exercise, like this is basic, move more, eat less.
That routine, habits.
It's creating the habits. So that piece around, getting to a certain age, so you kind of have to do your strength and conditioning. So a little bit of gym work, a little bit of running. Just be careful around what you eat, when you eat, and social connection. So friendships and talking to people and, sports and, all of that is really important to keep yourself mentally well and to keep yourself physically well. And I'm lucky as well. We were talking earlier. I have a background from West Cork. My dad comes from a little farm in West Cork. So that's a place I go to quite regularly. So, despite the love of the job and despite the gym and all of that, getting away from it all for a couple of days into something that's quite back into nature, going for those walks, peace, a bit of mindfulness. I suppose mindfulness would be the vernacular of the day, but that's really important. And just to really decongest and speak to people from
meditation.
That's your meditation. And talk to people from a completely different background who do not care about technology and banking. Would put you in your place. So that's
grounding.
That's the grounding. That's the balance, and that's what I love. The other part of it is, and again we talked about it briefly. It's the people you work with as well. So that the environment you work in can put you in balance or off balance. Okay, so ensuring that you're finding good people, or you're developing good people, or you're surrounding yourself with good people. That's really important, because in this world there's always a drama. There's always something to worry about. In the macro level, you think about things like COVID that we've navigated in recent years, and Brexit has been challenging for every industry, banking included, and the very unfortunate war we're dealing with right now in the Ukraine. All of these things are left field, and are new dramas on what's already, a busy industry. So, having people around you who are calm, equally balanced, and I think resilience is probably a good word. Resilient to that, to be able to kind of cool the jets, think clearly, understand how you respond in a constructive way to whatever challenge comes at you. That's fantastic as well. So just being in that environment and being surrounded with those kind of people.
That takes a lot of work to create that type of culture. That is,
it does, yeah.
And putting the right people around you, and as you've already touched on there. What about this apart from Elon Musk, right? there is a noticeable change on the definition of hybrid working.
Yeah.
In lots of different industries right now, and I think it's fair to acknowledge there's probably a bit more data now around over a longer period of time of maybe some of the consequences of maybe perhaps a bit too much isolation in certain roles, perhaps, and what actually has meant from a retention, well-being, purpose. Lots of other really important things that fundamentally motivate people and their why, their purpose. What's your own kind of, I suppose, journey, like maybe coming out of COVID and how that's kind of shaped you as a leader, and then what's your own kind of, I suppose, leadership, but just how you navigate hybrid work right now in a bank, and what's really important for you, and how do you manage that effectively around hybrid working? It's a hot topic at the moment.
It's a hot topic, and it's a huge topic as well in terms of how does it all play out. I think it's the one thing that that COVID was probably a terrible pandemic, but a positive learning was the idea of hybrid working. And in the early days of COVID, it wasn't really hybrid. It was, some people worked exclusively from home, which was remote working, and some people, if they're customer facing or critical services, were physically in work. So you had, and in banking you had both of those communities. But we got lots of people working remotely very quickly, very safely. So we demonstrated that technically it can be done, which is okay, which is important. I think what we're learning since then is what's the right blend. So even through the pandemic, we kind of opened up our horizons in terms of recruitment. So you're able to recruit from, in our case, we're predominantly, we hire out of Ireland, but you said you in the Northwest, so we have people working, hired in from Donegal right along the Western Seaboard. I have an IT centre in Cork anyway, but all around the country we have colleagues now, and that's opening up talent and opportunity, and people are living and working in their local communities, which is fantastic. Flexibility that goes with that, etc. That's an ingredient that you want to kind of cherish. Teams must also connect, so you must meet each other regularly. You must understand your connection, your goal, your mission, your purpose, whatever language you want to use. So my philosophy is you do have to be together, day a week, couple of days a week in that context for a purpose. It could be to just meet up with the team, it could be to think about a new strategy, it could be to think about a problem together, whatever it is, but you're coming together as a team and as a unit. So that's important, so that the flexibility of the working from home, the connection of being in the office, and then I suppose making sure that it kind of all makes sense together, and that the experience of working from home and working from the office, like the most complicated thing now is when you have people in different contexts all trying to collaborate on something. How do you make that work? So again, technology has a role to play there, and there's innovation happening fast even in hybrid work technology. So tapping into that, there's a lot to it. Ultimately, I'm a fan. Ultimately, I see it as a huge opportunity in terms of skill. I actually see it as a huge opportunity in terms of well-being, in terms of the flexibility, and in a funny way, if you get the communication within a team right, it can give you an opportunity to have it even a greater sense of purpose. So because you do, as leaders, we have to work harder to communicate purpose, mission, how everybody fits in, whereas 10 years ago maybe we took for granted a little bit. So I think leaders have to work that little bit harder to communicate mission and strategy these days, which is only going to be a good thing, right? That is a good thing.
when you look at building that high performance though, and building that culture of high performance and bringing people on and growing leaders, like, is there any nuggets or advice or any nuggets of wisdom, even stuff that kind of you've learned from over the years that, again, I'm just with my lens of looking at people that are trying to get up and climb the ladder, and, you know, they might be thoroughbred technologists and love technology and just, you know, have that natural curiosity and probably similar background to yourself. But is there anything that you can help impart on the community that really helped you over the years, kind of just again realize your potential?
You learn from people. Like, you learn from people you work with. I've learned from, you know, a few examples would be early days, that experience of that strategy and research will stand for me forever, in terms of the idea of, you know, smart people are one thing, but actually giving smart people some direction and then letting them off and empowering them and letting them be accountable. That's a huge lesson. The other thing over the many years then of my management and leadership career would be, you just learn, you learn and you relearn. It's ultimately all about people, right? Anything amazing is only created by a group of people who are well connected and up for the challenge. And people, everybody is different, so everybody has their own thing. Everybody has their own ambition, their own issues, their own context, and you do learn that you have to pay attention to that. So you do have to have kind of that high empathy. You do have to care, and you do have to communicate. That's really important. So understanding people, and if you do that well, and you have the right people, the right mixture of people working with you, you can, the sum of the parts is just far superior. That group of people, well connected, feeling respected, feeling recognized. Now you're talking. Okay, so that's the key thing for me. The other thing would be, I think, ensure there's plenty of challenge. Right, never settle for steady. Create an environment where you're prepared to be questioned, you're prepared to be challenged. There's always a better way. There's always a quiet voice in the corner that maybe need to be drawn out. But creating that environment where there is good dialogue, good debate, and ultimately, again, you're getting into that realm of high performance and
an idea of meritocracy. Is that
meritocracy, but comfortable with feedback. Building a team environment where if I tell you, actually, that wasn't great, was it? That's as a colleague, as a peer-to-peer, that's okay. You can tell me that's not great either, and we have a conversation around what would be better and what's a better idea, and there might be another voice at the table. So that culture of communicating, feedback, openness, and that, again, back to the point around having the right diversity around that table of thinking is really, really important. So long-winded answer to your question, but there's different elements to it. But that empowerment piece, that diversity piece, and that culture piece are so important in my experience.
Oh, yeah. Would you have done anything different?
Would I have done anything different? I've really enjoyed my career. So I genuinely, and I have been so fortunate in terms of the opportunities I've had, getting the elevations at the right time in my career, which is, each of them, when I became senior manager, when I became executive, each of those transitions had the right stretch for me. And my current role was the right stretch for me as well. And so I've been lucky. I probably, in the middle career, I probably could have accelerated it a bit. Like, I could have made some different choices at those points. But that's hindsight, and that would have been around backing yourself a little bit more, having a little bit more courage to go for something that may be a little bit more uncomfortable for you. So just maybe go out of your comfort zone a little bit sooner in your career, and that's where the learning, that's where the stretch is, you know.
Good on you.
Yeah.
And final question, really, you know, who you look up to and who, you know, surround yourself with other people that kind of stretch you and push you along. Like, is there, like, do you read certain things? Do you listen to certain podcasts? Is there certain people, like, who are your idols? Like, who do you kind of really look up to? Is there any people that have kind of steered you over the years that you
I
call out?
What's that?
That you could call out right now?
I read a lot, so I enjoy all of the sort of the organizational culture piece. I don't buy into all of it, but I read quite a lot of it. So I wouldn't call it that even as my Bible per se, but I do read, and I pick snippets up. I've worked with different coaches over the years, so you know, so like again, I won't name check, but there's people, and more recently, in recent years, it's executive coaching, but I like to work with people who come from a sports psychology background, so that idea of high performance in that context. So I'm working with a guy at the moment, my leadership team, and it's just pushing. It's really setting the bar. There's a huge amount of well-being. There's a huge amount of energy management, but there's also a real focus on purpose and connection. So that blend works well for me. I think it works for my team. So I'm an advocate, but I don't have a God or a Bible in that sense that I go to. And again, people, like, sometimes your heroes are people you meet every day. So there's people I work with and have worked with over the years who I've learned far more from, or I'm learning far more from, than you'll ever from, you know, a book or from a guru. But it's that blend, and just being interested in people,
awareness and curiosity,
their ideas, what's made them successful. So all of that. So it's there to be. Life is there to be experienced.
100%. Tom, thank you. We wish you nothing but the best in your continued successful career, and including Permanent TSB as well. It's great to see it. And good Irish success story, and long may it continue. And good on you. Thanks a million for your time.
I really enjoyed talking to you today.
Yeah,